So welcome everybody to the Padernacht Podcast. My name is Stephen Padernacht and I am the host. I decided to do this podcast for a number of reasons. Some of you might have seen me do different smaller projects in the past. I've done a lot of work with mortgage lenders. I've done a lot of small business owners. I've done some stories with my family. I've interviewed friends of mine, and I decided that I wanted to put all of that together into one podcast, and that's where we are today. This is episode 1, and I figured the best way to start it off is to kind of just tell you a little bit about what you're going to be listening to over the course of the next 40 to 50 episodes. As I said, I started this podcast because I wanted to give myself a platform to be able to discuss various issues. Things that are very important to me are real estate, small businesses, people, family, legacy, and stories. Stories about people that inspire me, stories about history, stories about I guess the best way to put it is to kind of just say that I'm a student of history and I really enjoy hearing about what sort of transpired in the past, because I'm a firm believer about history repeating itself. So I wanted to give myself this platform so I could discuss my business, my family, my legacy, people that I know, people that inspire me. So that's the basis of this show. It's called the Padernacht Podcast, Brick by Brick. And as you can tell by the intro, it's a play on words, sort of brick by brick, because I am a real estate investor. I am a real estate broker, and real estate is something that is near and dear to me. So I wanted to just talk just a little bit about myself and kind of just give you an idea about where I come from and who I am. So the first thing I want to talk about is my upbringing. So I was born and raised in the Bronx. I grew up in Kingsbridge, which is West 238th Street and Sedgwick Avenue. On the corner of Giles Place, now there's a street sign there that was changed to my father's name. It is now called Howard E. Padernacht Way. That street sign was done, I want to say 2011-ish. He passed away in 2009. And my brothers and I thought it was extremely important for us to leave a mark and make sure that nobody ever forgot what he did for that community. And if I'm talking about my childhood, it's very important for me to mention that my father played a pivotal role in who I am as a man. I didn't realize he was doing it, but throughout my life, he took the approach of teaching. And he didn't necessarily shy away from the fact that he was teaching me these things. He would say straight up to me, like, you don't realize it now, but one day you will. That was a major line in my life. You'll know one day. You'll realize one day what I'm telling you. And I could tell you now, sitting here at 43 years old, damn, he was right. It's so eerie to me. I find myself literally doing things that he did. Small example is he was a fanatic when it came to doing the dishes. And every single night before we went to bed, you got to make sure the dishes are done. Never leave dishes in the sink. And to this day, that's like just a small example of one of the things that I am very, very, very adamant about as well. It kind of instills in you this sense of, don't leave a mess before you go to bed, and make sure you clean yourself up so that you wake up to a clean sink. Anyway, I say all that to say that growing up, I wasn't the top student in the class, and my mother always felt that I needed to, do better in school and get better grades. My dad always said, make sure you're passing, make sure you're getting decent enough grades, and that's something that was very helpful to me, because it didn't necessarily say that I needed to be excellent, but it said that I needed to make sure that I was, above the failing grade, and that I was able to put forth the effort to be able to move on to the next grade, right? So my father really played a pivotal role. Now, I grew up the youngest of three brothers. I have two older brothers and a father. And I always say that I was blessed because I had three male role models. And I was able to extract all of the good qualities and all of the things that these three older males kind of put out for me. And I was kind of able to, maybe discard some of the bad qualities. And not that my brothers or my father have any bad qualities. I mean, listen, we all do. We're not perfect, right? But the fact of the matter is I had three older male role models. So I think that I was blessed. So I grew up in the Bronx, youngest of three boys. I went to public school. I started in public school, and I was in public school till about fifth grade. And at that point, the public school system was, not the best, and it was, kind of going downhill. So my mom decided to put me into private school. I didn't realize that decision that my parents made at that point was going to really change my life. At that point, I had friends. Obviously, you grow up in a neighborhood, you have friends, you have people there that you're friends with. But I ended up being in class with actually one of my best friends who lived in my building, my boy Chris. Now, Chris was able to introduce me to a couple of people in the school, and kind of it really changed my life. It really did, because those relationships that I made when I was in private school are still some of the friends that I have to this day. My closest friends, literally, like my best friends in the absolute world, who I actually consider brothers, are the ones that I met when I went to visitation. So I was in private school, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. And then I ended up going to high school in the Bronx. As you can tell by my t-shirt, I'm Bronx educated. I'm very proud of that. Now, I was in private school. I went to, Fordham Prep, but at the same token, you still grew up in the Bronx, and the Bronx played a major role in who I am as a person. It really molded me. Growing up in such a diverse community, being around so many different people, I was able to really, get the results of the melting pot of New York City. So I come from the Bronx, and I take that with me literally every single place that I go. It's funny, I'm on a bunch of calls with people all around the country, talking business, and they always tell me that you've got that Bronx accent. You've got that accent from New York. I don't obviously notice it, but everybody else does. So that's kind of a little bit about where I come from and what made me who I am today. The next thing I want to talk about a bit is my ambitions and what kind of molded who I am today and why I'm such an ambitious person. It would be remiss for me not to talk about my father again. My father taught me that you could either decide to go. Let me see how to put this best. I guess it's best summed up in a story. When I finished college, and this was 2003, 2004. When I finished college, and I use the word finish because I didn't actually graduate, I walked, and I was supposed to go back and finish that summer, and then I never went back. And I didn't go back for another 10, 15 years. And we'll talk about that another time as to, that story. But when I finished college, my father said to me, hey, look, you have a degree in public relations, or assuming that I had a degree in public relations. At that point, starting salary for public relations was probably, I'd say probably 40, 50K a year if I went and got a job in the city. And he told me, he said, listen, you can go and you can get a job working in the city, or I could pay you, I think it was at the time, 3, 4, maybe $500 a week. I'll give you that much money per week for 1 year. And what I'll do is I'll teach you how to never depend on another person for a check for the rest of your life. I ended up choosing the latter. And for that 1 year that I was with my father out of college, I really went to school. I really got an education in real estate, in business, in dealing with people. And it was more impactful than all the years of school that I had ever been in that 1 year. Now, to his word, a year later, he comes up to me. He says, all right, so how much money you got in the bank? I said, I got a couple $1,000, whatever it was. He was like, all right, good. Well, this is your last check from me. And since that day, I've never worked for somebody ever again. And we're talking about, 20 some odd years ago, maybe, 21, maybe 22 years ago. In that year, I got my first real estate license. I was a licensed real estate salesperson, and that license allowed me to help people buy and sell real estate. Now, at the time, I was doing a lot of property management with my father as well. So I kind of dabbled in both aspects of real estate. I was doing, real estate sales. I was renting apartments. I was helping people, buy co-ops and homes, but I was also managing a property. I was managing, a lot of real estate at that time. And my dad was teaching me the nuts and bolts of the business and what it meant to be a property manager and how you really have to take a different approach to property management. I mean, now here we are in 2025, it's a little bit different. Everything is technology. Everything is, trying to leverage. But at that point, my father's approach to real estate and the one that he taught me, especially when it came to property management, was to be sympathetic to a degree and to really understand where the tenants are coming from and try to bridge the gap between the tenant's needs and the tenant's wants and the owner's needs and the owner's wants. And he taught me during that year that you need to really take yourself out of your own shoes and put them into somebody else's when you're negotiating and when you're dealing in business and in life. And that is something that I hold true to this day. A lot of people tell me that I am that I'm very sympathetic and I'm very forgiving and I'm very much somebody who looks out for other people and almost to a fault, but I look at it as a quality that I got from my father. And I'm willing to give people a second and sometimes even a third chance if I think that they actually are possibly, sorry, or if they actually need it, especially if they've wronged me or maybe something in business. So that's something that I learned in that year as well. Now, that kind of brings us to the end of my real estate salesperson experience. And I say that because, as a salesperson, you could be licensed for 2 years. And once you're licensed for those 2 years, you could then apply to get a real estate broker's license. I was able to accumulate enough business because you have to qualify to become a broker. You have to do a certain amount of deals. And I was able to get the qualifications and I took the course and I ended up passing my broker's test. And in 2000, I want to say 2006 or 2007, I became a real estate broker and I started a company that I still have to this day called the SMP Realty Group Corp. So here I am, 24, 25 years old, maybe 26. I don't even remember exactly, and I have my own company and I owed it all to my father. He taught me and put me in a position to be able to do this. And this is a company that I still have to this day. And it's a company that I'm very proud of, has been going on, and been able to be in existence. Now, as a real estate broker, it's a little bit different. And it kind of moves things in a different direction because, as a broker at that time, what you're looking for is you're looking to possibly start recruiting agents and you're looking to possibly grow your company. And that's where my ambition kind of comes from, right? Like I immediately felt that it was time for me to start growing and bringing people in and learning to grow that company. And what I did was, I would have an office that was next door to my father's office. And, I rented the space. It was a low rent, but I was able to get the space rented out. And I built a training room and I built an office and I built space for myself. And I really wanted to set my mark on this world. And I realized very, very, very quickly that starting a business is not for the faint of heart. It's not a 9 to 5 thing being in business. It's especially when you own your own business and you are the marketing department, when you are the accounting department, when you are the training department, the human resources department, when you are everything and you're wearing all of these hats. I learned that very quickly. And the lessons that I learned in those first few years were extremely important. And you don't really know it until you go through it. I tell people all the time that starting a business is extremely rewarding, but it's also extremely draining. The risk has to be worth the reward has to be worth the risk, I guess is the saying. And for me, it always has been. Now, yeah, have I struggled? Have I had years that were really, really plentiful? Yes. Have I had years that were very, very dry? Yes. But what I will say is that when I lay my head on the pillow every single night, I know that I'm the only one who's in control of my destiny. When I look in the mirror, I know that I'm the one who controls how much money I make. I'm the one who controls the freedom that I can have to be able to take days off when I want them, or be able to hire people and when I want, or to grow my business, or to decide the direction of my life. I don't ever tell anybody that they should not go and work for anybody else, but I know personally, I just couldn't do it. And even to this day, like, I'm doing so many different things at this point in my life that I realized that I wouldn't have it any other way. The struggle is really what makes it worth it, the journey. And I listen to a lot of motivational videos, and I listen to a lot of different sort of mindset principles, and they all talk about the same thing. It's the journey. It's not necessarily the end result, but it's the journey that is really the rewarding part. And I think that is absolutely true. So just to kind of go back to my real estate career. So at this point, I'm a real estate broker. And then I got a call from a friend of mine who said to me, "Hey, I know somebody over at Keller Williams, and they're looking to start a market center, or they have a market center at that point in Westchester, and it might be a good connection for you." I was introduced to Keller Williams at that point, and I joined the company immediately. The training, the salesmanship, the camaraderie, everything was just exactly what I was looking for without actually knowing that I was looking for it. So at that point, I joined Keller Williams. I was with KW probably, my first go around with Keller Williams, I was probably there for about 5 or 6 years. And at that point, I was still doing property management. So I couldn't really devote all my time to becoming a real estate broker, but it was really impactful for me to see the way a company is supposed to be run, the way a sales company is supposed to be run, and to be around people that are like-minded, that all have the same goals in mind. So I was with KW, for about 5 or 6 years. Then I decided to leave because I had my broker's license, and I said, you know what? I thought I was smarter than the system. I thought that I could leave, and why am I going to give them a percentage of my deals? What is it that they're actually doing for me? I had lost sight of the initial luster of why I joined them to begin with. And that's because I really wasn't taking advantage of the trainings and the market center the way I should have been. That first year or two, it was amazing. But then I kind of fell back into the trap of really not being so engaged in the office. And anybody here who is anybody that's listening to this that is in a real estate office, or you're part of a larger franchise, take advantage of the office setting and the people that are there. Because if you're not, then you're just kind of wasting your time. Because if you're not going to take advantage of it, I feel that is the best aspect of being part of a larger company, is being able to go into the market center or go into the office and brainstorm and meet people in there and talk about the struggles you're having and the successes and the failures and all of those things. So I went back to being a broker. And after that, I did that for about 5 years. And then from there, I just needed something different. And I called up Jamal, who's the broker at Keller Williams. I said, "Hey man, I know I left, but I want to come back." And he opened the doors for me again, welcomed me back, and I've been there ever since. And I can honestly say to this day that I probably will never leave. You never know what the future holds, but my relationship with KW is not necessarily so one-sided, right? Like the things that they offer, the culture, the people, is really something that I can't necessarily replace. And specifically Jamal, he's somebody who plays an important part of that decision as well. So I'll talk about more about my relationship with Keller Williams and real estate in a later episode. But that kind of brings me up through my late 30s as far as like real estate. Now, going along this whole timeline, when I was 21 years old, my brother, in all of his wisdom, gifted me a bar in the neighborhood. And I had literally just turned 21 years old. It was called the Harp Bar, and it was located in Kingsbridge, right off of Broadway, right off the 1 train. And I could tell you that I was honestly there for no more than 3 months. One night, in all of in all of my wisdom, I thought it would be a great idea to promote the bar as a college bar. And the cops came in one night and they raided the place, and they got caught, and we got caught with, I think it was no less than 20 to 30 college kids. And of course, all of them claimed that they didn't have IDs and we didn't ID them. I swear to this day that we ID'd everybody, and they were probably just showing fake IDs. But again, I was 21 years old myself, so like I didn't really put much stock into it, right? That was just kind of what we did. So that was a very short-lived business venture that I had, but I had the bug. And after that, I ended up going down and bartending in the city at a couple of other places for my brother. I was a waiter, I was a busboy, I was a bartender for many years. I was a bar manager for many years. And when I was, I want to say probably 30 years old, I opened up another bar in the neighborhood called The Bridge, and I was there for a couple of years. Those 2 places in the neighborhood taught me a lot of things. It taught me a lot about who is going to really be there for you when you need them, and who's not, and who's really just in it for the free beers and the free booze. So I ended up giving up my share of The Bridge after a while. It just didn't really align with where I wanted to be. And I'd say probably, what year are we in? 2025. So in 2014, my brother asked me if I wanted to go partners with him downtown for a new bar. And that bar was called Bar 9. And I've been there for the past 10 years. Now, I can tell you that I've had many struggles. The first 4 or 5 years of the business were wonderful. So think about it, 2014 through 2019, early 2020 were beautiful. Then, of course, the pandemic happens in 2020 and the whole world stops. Now we got to get creative. Now bars are shut down, businesses are shut down, people are dying. You have to board up the businesses. It was a really rough patch. I could say that I was able to hold on to the business, but I will say that at this point, 10 years later, after opening the bar, it's a much different community. We're located down in Hell's Kitchen in New York City. It's a much different community, but being in real estate and also being in the bar business are 2 businesses that I run. And it's 2 things that have pretty much impacted my life. And it's, at the end of the day, I'm building my own brands. And that's kind of how I look at it. And if I'm going to bust my ass and I'm going to go out there and I'm really going to, put in the work in 17, 18-hour days, wake up at 5 a.m, not get home until 11:30 at night, go to sleep for 5, 6 hours, wake up, go do it again. Like, I'm doing it because I'm building my own brands. And that's just the person that I am. So those are 2 of the businesses or careers that I'm in and that we're going to talk about later on in these episodes. Another aspect of my life is my family. As I had mentioned, the youngest of 3 boys, right? So I have 2 older brothers. My father, who, may he rest in peace, passed away in 2009. And then my loving and caring mother. I always joke that my mother, I swear to God, I think that she walks on water. That woman, her faith and her faith in God and her commitment to her religion and her children and her family is something that has been so impactful on me throughout my entire life. And I would be remiss to not talk about how important of a role she has played. As much as my father did in business, my mother has played a role in my life when it comes to my faith, when it comes to sacrifice, when it comes to just being an overall caring person. and literally, turning the other cheek and just being there for people. So, I grew up in this household with, two loving parents, two older brothers, and family was always something that was extremely important. My father would always say that, there's five of us in the family. So he would say that, each of us together is just a finger, right? But you put the five fingers together and you have a fist. And that is something that was very impactful for me because it taught me that family is the most important thing. And when push comes to shove, your family is going to be the only people that's there for you. And my two older brothers have shown time and time again that that is absolutely true. The two of them really, I could tell you that I've never called and asked them once when I really need them and they didn't show up. My mother, the same thing. So family is something that I'm going to talk about a lot in these episodes, and just diving deep into the past legacies of where my family comes from and where other people's families come from, right? Like, I was absolutely blessed to grow up in a household like I did. Now, granted, my father wasn't the one who taught me how to throw a baseball or ride a bike. My mother was the one who taught me how to do that stuff. My dad taught me, how to work hard, how to be there for people, how to be a good husband, how to be a good father, how to be a good man, how to be a good businessman. My mother was the one who taught me about sports and about, as I said, riding a bike and, religion. My mom, was a Sunday school teacher for many, 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 many years. She was a teacher herself. She taught second grade Catholic school. So it was always communion. Every year was communion class for her. And, growing up, I never really put much stock into going to church, but I find myself now being 43 years old and just finding my way back to my faith and back to God and understanding how important it is for you to have a relationship with God. Because when all else fails, if you don't have faith, what do you actually have? And that's my firm belief. And I don't knock anybody who, possibly doesn't believe in God or whatever the case may be, or a higher power. But I know personally from my own experience that if it wasn't for God, I probably wouldn't have gotten through many, many things in my life. And now being a 43-year-old man, I as I said, I find myself going back, and I even started reading the Bible again. Shout out to my boy Dave, who kind of put me onto this version of the Bible, and it's called the Everyman's Bible. That Bible is really impactful because what it does is it kind of breaks down and gives you a way to look at the different stories and how they could impact you in today's modern society. So I got through real estate, I got through businesses, I got through family and legacy. I think the last thing that I want to talk about and kind of just go through and tell you about that I'm going to speak about here is going to be history. And it's going to be talking to people and interviewing people and talking to them about how history has impacted today's society. I personally feel that history, as I had mentioned earlier, repeats itself. And being a student of history, I find myself now very, very, very intrigued by what happened in prior generations. So what I want to do here on this podcast is I want to talk to people and see if they feel the same way and what lessons we've learned from the past that we can maybe bring forward in today's society so that way we don't make the same mistakes. I do have a lot of connections with a lot of different people that are involved in different aspects, business owners, politicians, athletes, entertainers. So I'm going to bring all of them, as many of them as I possibly can, onto this show. And I'm going to not only interview them, but I'm going to dive deep into their stories. And at the same time, I'm going to talk about my experiences, and hopefully it will leave an impact on you guys as the listeners. So buckle up and get ready to go on this journey with me. Thank you so much for listening to episode 1, and I'll see you guys later.